Let me ask you something. What if I told you there was a war that killed more people than World War I, but you've probably never even heard of it? Well, there was. We're talking about a colossal civil war that absolutely ravaged 19th century China. And the origin story? It's one of the strangest you'll ever hear. It all kicks off with a truly mind-boggling number.
Just look at that number, 20 million. And folks, that is the minimum estimate for the death toll of the Taiping Rebellion. Some historians put it closer to 30 million. Now, to put that into perspective, the total military and civilian deaths in World War I hover right around that same figure. This was, hands down, one of the deadliest conflicts in all of human history, and it all started with just one man.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth does a war on this scale, a conflict that would change China forever, begin with one guy's bizarre, feverish dream? The answer is, well, it's an unbelievable story of faith, failure, and pure fanaticism.
Okay, so let's get right into it and meet the man at the center of this storm. His name was Hong Xiuquan, and he believed with every ounce of his being that he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. Yeah, you heard that right. He thought he was sent to Earth on a divine mission, and his journey from a failed academic to a messianic king is the key to this whole insane story.
So how does someone even get to that point? Well, this slide breaks down his wild transformation. Back in 1837, Hong, who desperately wanted to be a government official, fails the super tough imperial exam for the third time and just breaks. He has a full-on nervous breakdown. In his feverish state, he dreams of a celestial family, but he has no idea what it means. So years go by, it's now 1843, he fails the exam for a fourth and final time, and he finally gets around to reading some Christian pamphlets someone had given him ages ago. And that's when it all clicks into place for him. He reinterprets his old dream. The old man he saw was God the Father, the elder son was Jesus Christ, and he, Hong Xiuquan, was God's second son.
And here he is, the self-proclaimed Heavenly King. Hong was convinced he'd been given a mission from God to rid China of demons. Now to him, the demons weren't just spiritual. They were the ruling Manchu-led Qing Dynasty, who he saw as foreign invaders, and the entire system of Confucianism that held society together. He believed he had to destroy both to build his new kingdom on Earth.
You might think a personal revelation like that stays, personal. Not this one. It exploded into a massive political and religious movement. Their goal wasn't just to swap out one emperor for another. Oh no, they were aiming to completely tear down and remake Chinese society from the ground up.
This is the key thing to understand. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom wasn't just another rebellion. It was a true revolution. Their whole point was to destroy the old world, the old traditions, the old power structures, and build a brand new one based on Hong's very unique blend of Christianity and Chinese beliefs. They wanted to rip the entire imperial system out by its roots.
And the crazy thing is, for a while, it worked. It worked incredibly well. Just look at this map. Their territory grew at a shocking pace. Starting down in the south in 1851, their armies just swelled in size and swept north. At its absolute peak, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom controlled a huge chunk of southern and central China, ruling over a population of almost 30 million people.
So you've got these two sides, and they are polar opposites. On one side, you have Hong's revolutionary kingdom. On the other, the Qing Dynasty, which had been in power for nearly 200 years and was fighting for its very survival. And you can see the hatred in the names they called each other. The Qing called the Taiping long hairs because the rebels refused to wear the hairstyle the government required. To the Taiping, the Qing and their supporters weren't even people. They were just demons that had to be wiped out.
To build this heavenly new society, the Taiping brought in some of the most radical reforms you can imagine for that time. They banned the ancient brutal practice of foot binding. All land was to be held in common. They even tried to enforce a strict separation of men and women. And, most radically, they set out to totally erase Confucianism, burning ancient texts and destroying temples. Now, these policies were revolutionary for sure, but they also terrified and alienated the most powerful people in society, especially the landowners and scholars.
But this utopian dream of a perfect kingdom very quickly turned into a nightmare. We're talking about a 14-year-long total war that turned central and southern China into a gigantic, bloody battlefield.
And we really have to understand what total war means here. There were no non-combatants. This wasn't just armies fighting armies. When the Taiping took a city, they would often systematically kill the entire Manchu population, men, women, children, everyone. And the Qing forces, in retaliation, would commit their own horrible massacres when they retook territory. It was just brutal.
The fighting was just relentless. Picture these enormous armies, sometimes hundreds of thousands of soldiers on each side, smashing into each other in bloody, hand-to-hand combat. The main strategy was to capture major cities, which led to these long, devastating sieges that left entire regions completely in ruins.
So how did it all fall apart for the Taiping? Well, this timeline really shows the key moments. After they captured the great city of Nanjing in 1853, they seemed unstoppable. But maybe the most fatal blow came from within. In 1856, a horrific internal power struggle, a bloody purge, killed off thousands of their own people and basically crippled the leadership. At the same time, the Qing started getting their act together, forming new, more effective armies, some even led by Western officers, that slowly began to push the rebels back. By 1864, Hong Xiuquan himself was dead, and his heavenly capital fell just a month later.
So the Heavenly Kingdom was finally destroyed, but the war left these deep, permanent scars on China. It fundamentally altered the course of the nation and, in many ways, set the stage for the end of the entire imperial system.
I mean, just look at this map. It's devastating. It shows the population loss in the areas where the fighting was heaviest. The red zones lost up to 80% of their people. And that wasn't just from combat. Millions upon millions died from the starvation and the disease that always follow a war like this. Entire regions were practically wiped off the map.
And this is why it matters so much for modern history. The Qing Dynasty won, yes, but it was the kind of victory that kills you. To defeat the Taiping, the emperor had to give huge amounts of power to regional governors to raise their own armies. The government in Beijing never really got that power back. And that decentralization is what directly led to the warlord era that tore China apart after the dynasty finally collapsed in 1912.
So, in the end, the Taiping Rebellion was a fatal blow. It bled the country of its people and its treasure, and it broke the central government's grip on power. It was the event that mortally wounded the Qing Dynasty and sped up the end of 2,000 years of imperial rule in China.
And that leaves us with one of history's biggest what-ifs. What would China, and for that matter the rest of the world, look like today if Hong Xiuquan's Heavenly Kingdom had actually won? What if a radical, theocratic state had been born right there in the heart of Asia? It's a sobering question, and it really reminds you how much of our history can turn on the dream or maybe the delusion of just one person.